At the fall of Singapore to the Japanese in February 1942, an army of 100,000 men and thousands of civilians were taken prisoner at one fell swoop. Changi Prison in Singapore was built to house 600 prisoners. Immediately, 3,000 men and 400 women and children were put there. Later, the civilians were moved out and 5,000 prisoners of war were moved in. 6 to 7 men to a cell built for one prisoner. The conditions were crowded. They were insanitary. Disease was rife. The death rate was appallingly high. And the dead were taken to their graves with no ceremony, no dignity. To counter this unfeeling attitude, and as a sign of Christian faith, Captain Cecil Pickersgill of the Royal Engineers approached the Japanese commandant and asked for permission for building a lich gate at the entrance of the burial ground. He was given permission, and Captain Pickersgill and the men of the 18th Division Royal Engineers designed and built this lich gate, which stood 4 square at the entrance to the graveyard. The design was based on a traditional English church design. In fact, Captain Pickersgill took this design from his own church, the Holy Trinity Church, 𝑠t𝑡𝑟𝑒, County Durham. The gates were constructed originally of local timber. There were no nails, so barbed wire was converted into the fastenings. In the corners and the eaves, Sergeant Major of the Royal Engineers carved a rose, a thistle, a daffodil, a shamrock, the emblems of the United Kingdom, and below the eaves the words, "To the glory of God, and in memory of those who laid down their lives for king and country." Captain Cecil Douglas Pickersgill, Royal Engineer, died of malaria the following year, 1943, while working on the Burma Railway. After the war, the Changi Lych Gate was stored until 1952, when it was re-erected at St George's Garrison Church, Tanglin Barracks, Singapore. And I well remember once on a guided walk taking a lady round who had been a forcer's child. She'd grown up in Singapore in the 50s and 60s, and as we came around the corner, she stopped and she looked and she said, "I walk past that lich gate every day of my childhood." And it was such a poignant, emotionally charged moment for her to be reunited with this gate which held so many memories for her. The gate stayed there until 1971, after the British withdrew from Singapore, and the Lych Gate was again dismantled. This time it was taken to England, to Bassingbourn Camp, to the barracks in Cambridge, which was a Royal Engineers training centre, so conveniently and appropriately it was taken there. And many men from that area were in fact taken prisoner at the fall of Singapore. After many years at Bassingbourn, eventually it was decided to find a fitting home for the Lych Gate, which had seen so much tragedy. So, in November 2003, the Lych Gates were re-erected at the National Memorial Arboretum. And in February 2004, the Changi Lych Gate, through which the bodies of around 600 prisoners had passed, was formally transferred to the care of the National Memorial Arboretum. In the words of a former Far East prisoner of war, "To me, the Lych Gate is typical of a Far East prisoner of war. They've both been stripped and bashed on more than one occasion, shipped back to England and are still going strong. The Changi Lych Gate is here, in its final resting place at the National Memorial Arboretum."